He met his future self, then disappeared. There was a man who went by the name of Kyle. He was a fun-loving guy in his early 20s who had just graduated from college. He had big dreams and even bigger plans for the future. One day, while walking home from work, he decided to take a shortcut through the park. As he walked, he noticed an older man sitting on a bench feeding the birds. There was something about the man that seemed familiar to Kyle, but he couldn't put his finger on it. As Kyle approached the man, he heard himself say, "Excuse me, but have we met before?" The man looked up, and when he did, Kyle gasped. It was him, but older, with grayer hair and deeper wrinkles. The older Kyle looked back at him and smiled. "You're me," Kyle said, his voice filled with wonder. "Yes," the older man replied, chuckling. "I'm you from 20 years in the future." Kyle was shocked. How was this possible? The older Kyle explained that he had traveled back in time to give his younger self some advice. He told Kyle that he was at a crossroads in his life and that the decisions he made now would have a profound impact on his future. Younger Kyle was eager to hear his future self's wisdom. Older Kyle spoke to him about the importance of seizing opportunities, taking risks, and never giving up on his dreams. He also warned him about the dangers of procrastination and the consequences of not living to his full potential. Kyle listened intently, absorbing every word his future self had to say. He felt a sense of responsibility to make the most of his life and not waste it. As their conversation came to an end, younger Kyle asked, "How can I contact you?" "I mean you from the future." Older Kyle smiled mysteriously and said, "You won't be able to, but I believe in you." With that, he stood up, walked a few steps, and then disappeared right before Kyle's eyes. Kyle was left standing there in the park, stunned by what had just happened. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? Or was it real? He thought about the advice his future self had given him and realized that he needed to take action. He could no longer afford to waste time or live in fear of failure. In the weeks that followed, Kyle began to make changes in his life. He started by setting short-term goals for himself, like getting a new job or learning a new skill. He broke down his bigger dreams into smaller, more manageable steps and started working towards them one at a time. He also became more mindful of his time and the things he was spending it on. He cut out distractions and focused on the tasks that were important to him. But Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He couldn't help but wonder about his future self and what had become of him. Had he accomplished all those dreams they shared? Was he happy? Kyle wanted answers. But he knew that if his future self had come back in time to visit him, it must have been for a reason. Maybe his journey was meant to be his own. Maybe he wasn't supposed to know what lay ahead. One day, while sorting through some old stuff in his attic, Kyle found a box filled with letters. He opened it and began reading the letters, each one more precious than the last. They were love letters from his wife. In the first letter, she wrote about how much she loved him and how excited she was to spend the rest of her life with him. The other letters were filled with stories of their adventures together, their laughter, their joy, and unwavering love they shared. As Kyle read through the letters, he felt a surge of emotion. He remembered the day they met, their first date, their first kiss, and he was reminded of all the reasons why he fell in love with her. But then he came across a letter that brought him up short. It was a letter from his future wife telling him that she had cancer and that it was terminal. He continued reading, his heart breaking with every word. She wrote about how much she loved him, how grateful she was for the time they had spent together, and she told him not to blame himself. She ended the letter by telling him to move on and find someone new, someone who had more time to give. Kyle sank to the floor, his mind reeling. He had lost his future wife, but how and when? Why didn't his future self tell him this when he had the chance? He felt betrayed, angry, and most of all, heartbroken. He wished he could go back in time and do things differently, but he knew he couldn't. He had to accept the reality of his situation and move forward. With heavy steps, he left the attic and went back to his room. He looked around him and realized that everything in his life had changed. He was no longer the carefree young man who had graduated from college with big dreams and an uncertain future. He was a man who had loved and lost, who had experienced pain and sorrow, but who had also learned the true meaning of life and the importance of cherishing every moment.